And a good day, everyone. Welcome into the It's Official podcast. Jeremy Plonk here alongside my partner, Jeff Siegel. We are set for Thanksgiving, which means let out a notch in the belt. Put on your most relaxing pants that you have. No shoes this weekend. Just eat football and some horse racing. We've got some good horse racing to talk about, Jeff, and some good football as well. I know, geez, like Sunday night football, SoFi. You got Monday night football, SoFi. Have you been home this week?
Not really. I was at the Charger game last night, the Bruin game on Saturday. I've got a basketball game tonight, got the family on Thursday, and then I'm sure I'm going somewhere on Saturday. Oh, yeah, we play Fresno State. I'll be at that Rose Bowl for that game. So, yeah, no, I get around. And with my phone, I can watch racing, well, no matter where I am. I just put on the phone and Express Bet, watch the live shots. And so I'm in hog heaven, and I just wish my teams would win, but they can't have everything, right? So
it's college basketball season. I got my text yesterday from Hawaii saying aloha from Tom Quigley's Corner. So I know it's Thanksgiving when Tom's sending me texts of football or basketball games in Hawaii. He's back there for the holiday tournament. So it is basketball season officially now. Afternoon, weekday basketball. You got to love it. And plenty of great racing coming up this weekend. It's closing weekend at Churchill Downs. They got their big Stars of Tomorrow card coming up over the weekend. They'll wrap things up. Big weekend at Del Mar, of course, with multiple stakes. New York's got a good stakes weekend. So Thanksgiving is a great time. No live racing at Del Mar on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, but taking the torch is Gulfstream Park on Thanksgiving Day because it'll be opening day of the championship meet on Thursday. So they'll get things started there in a big way. And, of course, this weekend, final leg of the Florida Sire Stakes Series, rated by Merritt, one of the top 2-year-olds in America, based at Gulfstream Park. He'll be running in that one. We'll talk about him and some other 2-year-olds coming up just in a little bit. So a lot of great racing action. Typically on this show, we recap and we look ahead sometimes. So we're going to do a little bit of a Thanksgiving pivot, some from last weekend, some looking ahead to this weekend. A reminder, no Friday show this week, no First Call podcast, our weekend handicapping show that we usually do on Fridays. We're going to take off for the Thanksgiving weekend to enjoy a little R&R. We'll be back at that next week. It's our 1 week a year. We don't do the Friday podcast, so we'll get back at that next week. But let's get to the big board. Jeff Siegel, are you ready to do it? We've got 5 topics this week. Let's start things out on It's Official as we look at the older handicap division for next year, and it's getting some help after what we saw this past weekend. Jeff, talk about this 4-year-old and up crop that we could see at the first of the year. We already know Mystic Dan, the Kentucky Derby winner, is in training for Kenny McPeak. He's heading to Oaklawn Park, I believe, for the winter. We could see him somewhere in the spring. Fierceness is supposed to be back. Sierra Leone is supposed to be back. Of course, we know Torpedo Anna in the Filly and Mare division expected to be back at 4. So we've got a little more bounce from winter into next year than we usually have. And this past weekend, we got 2 more names to throw in the hat. Who do you want to start out with talking about?
Well, let's talk about White Barrio. I mean, this is a Breeders' Cup Classic winner from 2023 and went stale, went back to Safi, and was kind of really interested to see if he was going to be a viable candidate to return to form. Now, I mean, he ran against horses that were the equivalent of like Western Michigan or something.
Right.
A real cupcake. But, and I shouldn't say that because I don't know, maybe they're good this year. I don't know. But they're the poster boy for mid-major cupcakes. One of those bye games that all these good college teams play. Well, White Barrio got a bye win against an overmatched Allowance field. And he's supposed to win. But I like the way he won, didn't you, Jeremy? He looked like a horse who wanted to do it. He lengthened out. They wanted to get a good stiff race in him just to see if he could take it. I assume that he took it well. He came out of the race fine, but the way he performed, there's still something left there, and I think he's got a chance to have a really good winner in the major Grade 1 races.
Yeah, you look down at Gulfstream, you got the Harlan's Holiday Stakes as a prep towards the Pegasus World Cup at the end of January. They could potentially have him third off the layoff for the Pegasus if that's the plan that they want to go. As you mentioned, he looked good last Friday. Let's go back and listen. Gabe Pruitt had the call, substituting on the mic for Pete Aiello. Let's go back to White Barrio's win at Gulfstream last Friday.
The half is 45-4, and White Barrio trying to tackle Flying Liam. Vladislav moves up at the outside third with a quarter of a mile left to run. It's White Barrio who has taken over. Flying Liam had little resistance dead at the inside. It's far back to the rest. White Barrio is opening up here under Irad Ortiz. It's White Barrio, the South Florida stroll. It is homecoming to Gulfstream Park. He was advertised here, the big favorite. White Barrio takes it. Flying Liam was far.
Irad Ortiz had a big weekend as well. 5 winners on Sunday. I think he had 4 on Saturday. Huge start to the Gulfstream Winter for Irad Ortiz. Of course, the championship meet will get underway officially on Thursday. But White Barrio, might we see him next in the Harlan's Holiday, then on to the Pegasus World Cup? It seems to be the plan at this point. Now, on the West Coast, there was a runner who you and I have talked about literally since his first career start at Del Mar. His name is Skinner. He was kind of a late running 3rd or 4th in that career debut. And we said, keep your eye on Skinner. We think this is a horse as they go longer could be pretty effective. And I know you liked him even up to the Kentucky Derby during his 3-year-old season. Skinner and the Native Diver finally put it all together in big stakes company and got his 2nd career victory. Let's go back and watch the race from Del Mar, and let's talk about Skinner and what you think he might be able to do on the West Coast.
5th on the inside. Ultra Power is still last as Mixto and Tarantino take their battle to the top of the stretch in the Native Diver, and Skinner joins the fray on the outside, and the 3 of them hook up with 1 furlong to run. Skinner comes storming down the middle. Mixto between. Tarantino back to 3rd on the rail. Skinner and Hector Barrios have taken the lead, and Skinner wins the Native Diver. It was close for a second.
Skinner gets the victory there. Mixto was in the mix. Of course, that was the horse who upset the Pacific Classic. So for 150 grander, I believe it was in the Native Diver, it was a much stronger field than you'd expect for that particular race. No world beaters in there. Again, you did have a grade 1 winner in Mixto, but nobody's going to, mistake him for the absolute top of the handicap division. How do you think we rate moving forward now, Skinner?
Here's the issue with Skinner. I actually liked him in the Kentucky Derby last year. Not this year's, but the previous year, because he was taking the worst of it in the races at Santa Anita leading up to the Kentucky Derby. He was running really well, but he was being victimized by two things. 1, slow fractions, and then 2, a track that was not kind of his style. And I thought maybe at Churchill, he would those things wouldn't be an issue, and he might outrun himself. But he got scratched the week of the race. And so this was his first win, actually, just his 2nd career win, as he pointed out. Mm-hmm. But he trained well, and he was closer to the pace than he normally had been. So maybe he's getting a little more tactical now as he's older. The plan for him is to keep him at Santa Anita and point for the Santa Anita handicap.
Right.
And that seems like the logical thing to do. Hopefully the track will be more kind to his style, but I think as a 5-year-old, he's got a chance to mature. He's a fresh horse. He hasn't been over raced for sure. The injuries may have been a blessing in disguise because he's still around and fresh. So yeah, I liked it. I did. I mean, I don't know how good he is. I mean, he beat the Pacific Classic winner in Mixto. That's, not great because we know Mixto is not great, but it's still, for what passes as older horses in the West Coast, that's good. Right. Yeah, I liked him. I think he'd be okay. We could use a horse like him, out here in California, and this was a good win for him. So, I think he's going to have a good 2025.
And you think about the name horses coming back for next year. We talked about at the top of the segment, the Sierra Leones, the Fierceness, Mystic Dance. They're not coming to the West Coast. Breeders' Cup time, perhaps we're back at Del Mar. It'd be the first time you'll see those horses on the West Coast if we get way ahead of our skis and talk about next November. So, you're looking for somebody to kind of rise to the top of the handicap division on the West Coast. Certainly it could be a horse like Skinner. We know the patience of John Sheriff's. He'll wait all day for a horse, and he's waited many days for this one to finally come around. I wouldn't be surprised if Skinner has a pretty good season this year. And again, as they go longer to the 1 1/8 and a 1 1/4 should be no problem for him, I would think, with his running style. And he doesn't seem to have any bottom to his stamina. So 2 new additions to get back into the mix. We've seen them before, but they're back into the fold. White Barrio back on the East Coast, Skinner back on the West. That's our first topic this week on It's Official. We've got a little bit of help coming for the older division. Now, let's talk about a very sharp 3-year-old sprint filly. Her name is Too Sharp, and she stated her case over the past weekend in the Chaluki Stakes at Churchill Downs that she's going to be reckoned with next year. But just where might that be? Let's go back and take a look at her big effort in the Chaluki, and then we'll discuss.
Pull. Too Sharp off the turn, leads down to 4. Ouvra's now second. Royal Spa's now third. Taxed races up into 4th. There's a furlong to go, and Too Sharp keeps on going. The lead's back to 5. Royal Spa running up on the outside of Ouvra. 16th to go. Too Sharp comes roaring home decisively to win it by 7, effortlessly at that.
So, Jeff, she's really good. That was a good-looking field in there in the Chaluki, better than the grade and the purse. And she just ran them off their feet by actual definition of running them off their feet. What do you make of her?
I think she's really good. Here's a filly who's now run 5 times in her career. She's been odds-on favorite in every one of her races. She hasn't won them all, but the gamblers love her. And when she shows up with a race like that, even though she's been known to do that, I mean, now she's won 3 out of 5 with 2 seconds. She's about as good as it gets, I think, in the division. She's a 3-year-old turning 4. She just won going a mile, but it was a 1-turn mile, so it was kind of like a long sprint for her. She looks kind of like a sprinter. She's kind of a short couple sprinter type, but and you don't want to rate her. That's taking away her best weapon if you try to do that. But she's been known to blow her field away. She won a maiden race by 11. She won a first level allowance at Keeneland by lengthening out by 6 here. It was 5 3/4. She goes into I assume that she'll be at Gulfstream, and there's some 1-turn mile races there that I don't know who's going to touch her. So again, an exciting, very, very fast filly who can at least go a 1-turn mile. I don't know whether I'd want to mess around with her, stretching her out just yet.
Yeah.
But wherever she shows up next time, you'll know she'll be in the race because no one's going to try to run with her. That would be suicide. Good filly, and an exciting filly, and a flashy one, and a fast one.
I've got some good news for you because you might see her in your backyard. The owner, Richard Rigney, has indicated the La Brea might be next for her, that they might send her to the West Coast. So she's fast over a fast track at Santa Anita. La Brea, I believe, opening day, right?
It is, and that's interesting because that division's loaded. You've got a filly like Hope Road. You've got all kinds of good local 3-turning 4s. It's a race for 3-year-old fillies, but it's right before the first of the year.
Yeah.
And Too Sharp, I mean, these she probably will have never raced anything against anything close to what she's going to be facing in that race. But then the ones in that race, they haven't seen anything like her either.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That'll be a really, really good race. I hope she comes. And it's a grade 1. Why not try for it? It's the last grade 1 of the year for just for 3-year-old fillies. And it would be a logical place to send her. I hope she comes. It'd be great to have her.
If she goes to Gulfstream, I was looking at the stake schedule. You got January 25th on the Pegasus World Cup card, the grade 2 inside information, 7 furlongs. That would make a lot of sense. Hurricane Birdie in March 8th, the grade 3. That's basically it for her in terms of the 1-turn races at Gulfstream that would be on the calendar for. And if you go to Oaklawn and Fairgrounds, there is nothing in the older filly and mare sprint division really for her. She could go to the Azeri grade 2 in March and try to stretch out to mile 16th at Oaklawn, and we'll see where Phil Bauer has her over the course of the winter, and if he wants to go long or not. Her second dam, B Sharp Sonata, the dam side of the pedigree, 7 furlongs to a mile top. She won a Devona Dale. Then when she tried to go longer in the Kentucky Oaks, Black Eyed Susan, she couldn't hold it. Ended up 5th and 8th in those two. So I think definitely a 1-turn filly here, but a very good one. So we're looking forward to seeing what Too Sharp can do. She really caught my eye at Keeneland with that allowance, and then she doubled down with it in this most recent performance at Churchill Downs. Now let's talk next about not just the horse who's kind of up and coming like Too Sharp. This one's really up and really coming, Jeff, because we don't know anything about him yet, but his name is Barnes, and he's about to make his career debut. You've got the headline, good news or bad news for Barnes. Explain it to us.
Well, I'm an old guy, so I remember Jim Bad News Barnes, number one pick in the draft in 1964 for the NBA. And he got his nickname because when he'd show up for a game, it was always bad news for the opposition because that's how good he was. So they used to call him Bad News Barnes, and then he was just news, later on. Good guy, though, from what I was, he was a good, good, smart kid and great player in college and then a decent player in the NBA. I think he played for the Lakers for a year or two. Anyway, so this is also named after Jim Barnes, but not Bad News Barnes.
Right.
This is named after Jimmy Barnes, the assistant trainer for Bob Baffert. I'm sure they waited until they found a really, really special colt to do that because Jimmy Barnes has been such an important part of that operation. And Barnes makes his debut tomorrow at Churchill, even though he's been training hit Santa Anita. And I'm not really sure what the motivation was. That's a horse named New King on the outside, older horse. And Barnes is on the inside just breezing. They're going to go in, a minute and change, but he's got some faster works when they've let him run. They've got a 58 flat from the gate that jumps off the page. This is just a breezing work that we saw not too long ago, last week, as a matter of fact, under a tight hold along the inside. He's a good athlete. He's a good mover. He obviously has a ton left here. They wanted him to go out an extra furlong past the wire just to, make sure he had the bottom, and you can see him lengthening out. The other horse is being eased up, but last 8th and 12. So, he's just really a nice colt, and we're expecting to see big things from him. It's just a 5.5 furlong race, and being by End of Mischief, they gave a $3.2 million for him as a yearling at Saratoga. More than fit to fire, and they talk about a talking horse. He's a streaming horse, Everybody knows about Barnes, and everybody will be watching him. I certainly will, because as many good 2-year-olds as Bob's had so far this year, I'm thinking that this is the one they like the best, and it'll be fun to see how he performs at Churchill, and then he'll come back home, I'm sure, after that. But man, he's a prospect for sure.
Potentially the first Baffert horse back since the ban had been lifted at Churchill Downs. There'll be some historical or news significance, I should say, for that. Since the Medina Spirit disqualification and all of the subsequent punishments that went on with that and the extensions of those punishments. So Baffert back at Churchill Downs on Wednesday with the horse named Barnes. The horse was unnamed when they went ahead and offered him. You talked about a talking horse, how everybody knows about this horse. Before he even had a name, they put him in the first Kentucky Derby future wager pool back in December amongst the 39 or 38 individual betting interests in the 40 horse field. He was an unnamed colt for Bob Baffert and ended up going off just 39-1 in the future pool when he didn't even have a name yet. So the reputation preceded him. He is in the future pool offered this weekend as well. Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool 2 is coming up, opens Thanksgiving Day, Thursday at noon, and runs through Sunday at 6 p.m. Let's take a look at the price that the morning line maker, Mike Battaglia, has on Barnes and some of the other key horses in the Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool 2. Barnes listed at 25-1. Again, I think he may go much lower than that. That's just a projected morning line, not knowing what his performance is going to be tomorrow. If he runs off the screen in that career debut on Wednesday, the newness of it all, the recency bias, that could make him the individual favorite for the Kentucky Derby. We may have a new Kentucky Derby future pool favorite by the time that race ends on Wednesday. We'll see how the public backs him up. Chancer McPatrick, East Avenue, 2 horses that were defeated in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but had grade 1 credentials at age 2. The individual favorites at 10-1 in the morning line. Looking at some of the others in there, Jonathan's Way. We'll talk about him in just a little bit here on the program. Journalism horse for Mike McCarthy. You and I both liked it. Delmar, I believe it was, when he won around 2 turns, 99-1. I know that would be one that would be interested in maybe looking at. Rated by Merit runs this weekend. We talked about him at the top of the show. He'll go at Gulfstream Park in the Florida Sire Series Stakes. He is going to go 2 turns for the first time after 3 fast 90-plus buyer blowout wins in Sprint Company. We'll see how far Rated by Merit can go. Some of the others in there, Sovereignty at 20. The all others, of course, the 4-5 morning line favorite this time of year for the future wager. Jeff, anything on that page stand out to you?
Well, journalism is at 99-1. I could put $2 on him and not worry too much about it. That's a curling colt that we like a lot out here in California. Looks like not only a good colt, but a colt that's going to get better by leaps and bounds with experience and age and distance and all the other things that go into a Derby type of horse. So that's out of, that's a bet I'll take right now if I can get 99-1. But Barnes at 25-1. Of course, everybody will get to have a chance to see him run one way or the other. Romanesque, we'll talk about him a little bit later on at 40-1. Sovereignty, I like. I think at 20-1, he's a legitimate contender here. And of course, there's a whole bunch of 3-year-olds we don't know anything about yet. So that's on the all others. So, but at least there's a few prices there that you can take a flyer with and not worry too much about it. You don't want to take a short price here at this time. There aren't that many short prices. I mean, 10-1 is the shortest, but it's a intriguing group. But I think that again, the 2-year-olds that we saw on Breeders' Cup Day, not that crazy about them, honestly. For Derby horses, they're good at colts, but I don't know if I would be betting on any of those for a Derby type. I think there's something better out there that maybe we haven't heard of yet.
There are years the Breeders' Cup Juvenile just unloads and has so many potential stars. There are other years that the race is almost a forgotten conclusion by the time we get to May. We'll find out how this year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile crop will stack up Citizen Bull and his pursuers as we march down that trail. Now, let's take a look at what's coming up here over the Thanksgiving weekend as we hit topic number 4 this week on the It's Official podcast. We're going to look at some weekend watchables. We're going to call these. We've got a couple key races from around the country. We're going to start out on Black Friday at Del Mar. Then we're going to go to Churchill Downs on Saturday, where the fillies and the colts in the 2-year-old ranks are in the spotlight. Jeff, you want to talk about a race on Friday and a particular runner in that one. So let us in on your horse at Del Mar that you've got your eye on Black Friday while everybody else is out shopping. Who are you watching?
Well, I'm going to be watching the 8th race on Friday at Del Mar. It's an allowance race, fillies and mares. There's a 3-year-old daughter of Arrogate, and unfortunately, we won't have many of them left anymore. But this is the kind of filly that Arrogate could get that could blow you away, as he did, as once he got racing and developed and matured. She was given a race in her debut. She finished 3rd behind One Magic Filly, who's a very fast filly. Just kind of gave her a sprint there. Came back and ran 3rd to Cavaliere, who was a Baffert filly who was undefeated. I mean, nothing wrong with that, just the one sprint under her belt, and ran really well to be 3rd and got a very good number in defeat. Then she comes out of that, and she absolutely freaks. I mean, those of us who remember Ruffian said that was a Ruffian-esque type of performance. We're going to watch this race. She's going to win by 15, and she's going to earn a 107 buyer speed figure, breaking her maiden late in her 3-year-old season in just her 3rd career start. This is the kind of performance that you say, okay, that's a grade 1 filly. And she might even be better than that. So take a look at what Accuracy did in a maiden race at Santa Anita back last month. She's back in a non-winners of 2. I've got her 3-5 in the morning line just because I don't want to make her 2-5. I mean, I could, and I think she will, but and then after that, this Michael McCarthy trained filly next year as a 4-year-old. I mean, there's no telling how good she could be, but I'll be watching her on Friday. I want to see the progression that she may be able to make between that maiden race and the first level allowance.
Let's go back and take a look at her 2-turn scintillating stretch out.
Accuracy now starts to sprint away, and there goes Accuracy. Accuracy has put 3 lengths on Nafisa, and now it's 4 with a 1/4 mile to go. Philippa outside of them, and Scarlet Avenue there at the top of the stretch, and Accuracy is putting on a show. A 10-length lead with a furlong left to go as Scarlet Avenue takes 2nd and Nafisa 3rd. A sparkling performance from Accuracy, who is all alone. Accuracy wins by close to 15 lengths.
So that is Friday at Del Mar. Be sure to keep an eye on Accuracy. Let's go to Churchill Downs over the weekend on Saturday, where the Golden Rod and the Kentucky Jockey Club are co-featured on the big 2-year-old Stars of Tomorrow card. We've got one in the filly ranks, Jeff, who's really, really well bred. You want to talk about the filly in the Golden Rod in here. Her name is Good Cheer.
Brad Cox, poor Brad Cox. He doesn't have any 2-year-old fillies this year, right? And he's got a lot of them, and this one might be as good as any of them, at least eventually. She won her maiden first time out going a mile at Indiana. That wasn't fair. That's not fair. Poor guys at Indiana, they're trying to scrape out a living, maybe break her maiden, get a nice person, then Good Cheer shows up. Anyway, she wins there. Comes back, and Churchill wins another one by 17. Yeah. And then the last time out in the Rags to Riches at Churchill, 2 turnings, she won by almost 5. Numbers are solid. Died the Oro filly out of Wedding Toast, and this is Brad Cox and Godolphin at their best, I think. This is a race that would be nice for her to win, a graded stakes. But what is she going to be like next winter? That's the thing. Based on her pedigree, her progression, her resume, I mean, she's going to be special, I think, next winter. And she was certainly special in the Rags to Riches, looking like a filly who could be literally any kind.
Come to the top of the stretch. Claire's Charm's in deep water. Here's Good Cheer. Good Cheer with a blitz on the far turn has taken charge at the top of the stretch, and she kicks on to lead by 2. Claire's Charm fights on from second, farther back, Sherbini and Adira. Down to the final 16th, and Good Cheer finishing full of run. And slow start didn't matter. Wins by 4.
She was 3-5 that day. She could be 3-5 again. If she wasn't in the race, Brad Cox might be 3-5 with Eclaton, who's looked so good in 2 starts, including her last at Keeneland. She'll stretch out for the first time by Into Mischief. And then I thought, I don't even know if these two are as good as Mohima, Brad Cox's undefeated filly, who won her debut by 7. She came back and won an allowance a couple weeks ago by 5+. She looks like she might be the best Brad Cox 2-year-old filly. And I thought, who else does Brad have in a 2-year-old filly rank? Oh, yeah, 3-time Grade 1 winner Immersive, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. He's got the whole freaking division by the throat right now. I mean, he is absolutely loaded. Cox is sending a division for the first time to Gulfstream Park this winter. I wonder when the separation, you start to look, I mean, he's going to have horses for the Fantasy Series at Oaklawn, for the Fairgrounds Oak Series in New Orleans. He might need a 3rd division to run some of these 3-year-old fillies, and sending one of these good ones down to Gulfstream. You might see Mohima or one of these other horses at Gulfstream this winter. Right now, if you had to do a future book for the Kentucky Oaks, Brad Cox against all other 3-year-old fillies, I'm like odds on with Brad Cox. I mean, he is loaded in that division right now.
Yeah, he really is. And again, now, he can win graded stakes for these fillies. As 2-year-olds, the pressure is off, really. And when you think about it, I mean, he trains for breeders. They obviously want to keep their fillies and develop, their offspring as well. So they can get that graded. If he can get that graded stakes out of the way, which he would look like to do here in the Goldenrod, then I think that then it's just a matter of dividing them up and moving them around like chess pieces. Where do I go with this one? Where do I go with that one? He won't want to run against each other until maybe the Kentucky Oaks, when it's like the Derby, you just put them in there and figure out who's the best and try to win with one of them. But this filly is really good. And you mentioned Eclatant stretching out, the classic 2 sprints in the stretch out from the rail, going a mile and 1/16 in Churchill, and fast on figures. That's a hard horse to beat. And yet I think probably, Good Cheer will be favored, even though Eclatant is obviously very good as well. So, it's going to be Brad Cox with fillies. He's the Bob Baffert for fillies that we know nationally. Baffert's got the Colts. Cox has got a few good ones as well, but he's got the fillies. He's got that division surrounded.
We mentioned the great pedigree for Good Cheer in this Golden Rod. She's by Medaglia d'Oro out of Wedding Toast. Wedding Toast for Kira McLaughlin just kind of swept through all the big races and on the Naira scene. When the Grade 1 Phipps, the Ruffy, and the Belle Dame, she was really good, made $1 million plus. Fantastic pedigree there. And Medaglia d'Oro, when you talk about him with these fillies, I mean, Rachel Alexandra was kind of his first big one, but then, there's a big run of them. I had to write them down. There were so many of them over the years, from Rachel Alexandra to Wonder Godot, Elate, Songbird, Plum Pretty. I mean, there's a long list. Marketing Mix as far as a turf filly goes. I mean, when you talk about Medaglia d'Oro, his impact as a sire, so impressive with the fillies that he's put out. Maybe this is his next great one, Jeff.
Could be, and he's old. I mean, yeah. Sometimes when a horse gets to be in his 20s, they kind of lose their. I don't know what to. I mean, they don't bring quite what they bring in the marketplace simply because everybody's who likes them has already had them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But he's still going strong.
He's standing for 75,000 still.
Right, and his big, his rival on the racetrack was Candy Ride, and he's still going strong. And it's unusual to see stallions in their 20s still maintain their popularity with the breeders, but if you get a good graded stakes winning daughter of Medaglia d'Oro, that's like printing money. No matter what you want to do it, whether you want to breed the mare or sell them at auction, whatever the case is, he's nothing more valuable than a Medaglia d'Oro's graded stakes winning filly.
Brad Cox has him surrounded in the goldenrod Saturday at Churchill, but he's conspicuously absent from the Kentucky Jockey Club race number 11 on Saturday at Churchill. No Brad Cox trainees in there, but Phil Bauer is back in the discussion. We talked about Phil Bauer with Too Sharp, his outstanding 3-year-old sprint filly. He's got a 2-year-old colt, Jonathan's Way, who disappointed some in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He's kind of the headline name horse trying to bounce back in the Kentucky Jockey Club and run as well as he did in the Iroquois at Churchill Downs when he got his first stakes win back in September. I was looking at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Jeff, and I'm trying to figure out what's the excuse. He was just kind of flat, really didn't make up any ground, and just ran 7th. He didn't throw in the towel, but he didn't really make any dent. Then I called up the Brisk past performances for the horses who came out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He got a 106 Brisk late pace figure and made no dent at all. Ferocious ran 5th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile with a 111 late pace figure. 111 wasn't even enough to get you on the board. The fact that the winner in there, Citizen Bull, walked to 6 furlongs and 112 and change. 109 late pace figure for the winner. When the winners are going 109 late and you're spotting them 6 or 7 lengths, you have absolutely no chance whatsoever. I think that Breeders' Cup Juvenile might have been more of a pace situation for some of those horses that look like they didn't fire their shot. Maybe Jonathan's Way gets a mulligan and can bounce back at Churchill. He's got a really good workout since then. I haven't seen it visually, but you and I talked about his works going into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He wasn't galloping out that strong, and he just kind of looked like maybe he wasn't coming up to the Juvenile at his best, but that Bullet workout November 16th at 58-4 gives me a sense that maybe Bauer's got him right again.
Yeah, I liked him in the. I mean, as a gamble, I didn't think he had any kind of cinch, but in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I thought he was a good gamble. And in my own mind, I was looking at the race and I said, "There's no speed in this race." And Baffert's horses, Bob knows this. He'll let them roll out of there. And I hope Jonathan's Way, if they know what they're doing, they better strap him out of that gate and put him right in the fray. Because if he takes him back, I don't think he's the kind of horse that necessarily has got a great, massive acceleration. He better be in the fray. And I knew going to the clubhouse turn, he was dead. He was too far back. The Baffert's horses were breezing. Even before they put the opening quarter clocking on there, I knew they were going slow. And I said, and then he was just grinding away. And he ran like a colt that really didn't handle the track, but I hate to use that excuse because you don't know. If Jonathan's Way is going to be a factor in the Derby division after the first of the year and the winter, this is the kind of race he's got to win. Yeah. Because, I mean, he was so impressive in his first 2 races. One race he came from way out of it. The other race he made it the lead at Churchill. And he had a bad run. Every colt can have it. I'm not going to – but now he's in the 2-hole. The pace scenario is favorable. He doesn't have to be in front, but he can be in the first flight. Yeah. He has that good work you'd mentioned. This is put up or shut up time for a colt that I thought was going to be really good. Still has a chance to be good, but he's got to show me now in this race over a track we know he likes.
We know he likes it. Let's go back and look at his win in the Iroquois. 2 starts back at Churchill.
They come off the turn. Jonathan's Way heads for home in front by a length and a half and dashes away by 2. Jonathan's Way in front with a furlong to go. Giacoso put in a bid down the center. Owen Almighty runs up into second. 16th to catch Jonathan's Way. Clear by 3. Owen Almighty chasing Jonathan's Way, who's a big winner by 4 in the end. Owen Almighty was...
Challengers in the Kentucky Jockey Club include Filoso. Filoso going to be ridden by John Velasquez, who rode into a 3rd place finish in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. That was the race where it was wire to wire for East Avenue. Big, deep closing attempt on a track that was all speed opening weekend at Keeneland. Filoso's probably going to like the situation a lot better in this particular spot, track-wise at Churchill Downs. Long stretch run there to work with, too, at Churchill. 1,234 and a half feet to be exact, whereas he had the 16-pole finish line to deal with at Keeneland. So Filoso is going to be the late threat in there for trainer Chad Summers. Again, Hall of Famer Johnny Velasquez in the ride there. Jonathan's Way, Filoso look to be the 2 headliners going into Saturday's Kentucky Jockey Club. And, of course, you can watch that race and then make any decisions you want, because the pool for the Kentucky Derby Future Wager that's open on Thursday doesn't close until Sunday at 6 p.m. So we'll know everything that happened in that race in the Kentucky Jockey Club, if there's any horses in there that you want to sort out and potentially look at in the 40-horse future wager. Let's go back to the big board. Our final topic each and every week are our stars of tomorrow. We've got 2 of them in the same field from the same barn. Let's go back to Del Mar. Bob Baffert had him 1-2 in a race last week on Saturday in Maiden Company. Romanesque and Rodriguez are stars of tomorrow.
Romanesque on the inside, tries to fight on. These 2 scamper away from the last straw, who can't go with them at the top of the stretch. Baffert 1-2 here. Rodriguez and Romanesque. Who's it going to be? They are nose to nose with a furlong to go. The last straw is 3rd. It's Romanesque and Rodriguez. And Romanesque has the lead close to home. And Romanesque and Juan Hernandez will outrun Rodriguez to the wire and win it by 2.5. Then the last straw and postgame.
So, Jeff, let's talk about these 2 Baffert trainees. Romanesque, one of the horses offered in the Kentucky Derby Future Wager. He comes off that win at Del Mar. How do you see him shaking out and what we have in the future for him?
He's worth a couple of bucks at 40-1 that he's listed in that future book. I know he's by Practical Joke, and you always have to worry about whether they're one-turn horses like he was or how far they really want to run. But this colt, the way he trained, I was actually surprised when I looked him and said, he is by Practical Joke, because he's a lengthy, long-striding, good-looking, athletic colt who almost certainly will run farther and be just as good around 2 turns. Rodriguez was actually the favorite in that race. No, actually, he wasn't. He was favored for a while, and then the late money went to Romanesque, as I recall. But they were like head-and-head in terms of the wagering, and both are good colts for sure. But I thought I made Romanesque the morning line favorite. I thought he was a tad better, and he was a tad better. But this is a colt that not a flashy worker, but a good mover, good athlete. And I think he's a little bit of a sleeper. He doesn't go out there and breeze in 58 like Barnes or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, down the road, could be a serious colt, and again, worth a couple of bucks in the futures if you can get 40-1. I like him a lot. I mean, again, the only concern I have is that he's by a really, really top stallion who doesn't necessarily get you a mile and a quarter colt, but this colt trains like he will go all day.
Maybe San Vicente before they have to send him out longer, horse like that, going 7/8 a mile on the Santa Anita Derby Trail. Those topics wrap up our 5 this week, as we talked about the older division getting some help with some handicap division winners like White Abarrio and Allowance Company. The Breeders' Cup Classic winner headed back towards perhaps the Pegasus World Cup. Then we had at Del Mar, Skinner win the Native Diver, could be one of the top players on the Santa Anita handicap path come the spring. Too Sharp Sharp, the filly for Phil Bauer, looked really good, getting her third career victory, winning the Chaluki Stakes. We talked about her prospects, maybe going short at Gulfstream, maybe going long at Oaklawn. Maybe she'll have to wait all the way to April and run in the Madison at Keeneland and the Derby City Distaff at Churchill in May. Maybe she'll be put away for the winter, and we'll see her in the spring. Barnes, good news or bad news, Barnes, for the first-time starter. Barnes coming up tomorrow, $3.2 million colt, debuts in Wednesday's 7th race. We looked at his workout. He'll run at Churchill Downs and break the ban, if you will, of Bob Baffert back at Churchill coming up on Wednesday. Our weekend watchables, we look ahead to a race on Friday, Accuracy and Allowance Company at Del Mar in the 8th race. Also, a couple stakes races on Saturday at Churchill. The 2-year-old fillies, Brad Cox's Brigade includes Good Cheer in that one. And then in the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes, we're going to see if Phil Bauer's Jonathan's Way, winner of the Street Sense or the Iroquois Stakes, can bounce back and win the Kentucky Jockey Club. And then our stars of the future, the Bob Baffert trainees, Romanesque and Rodriguez, running 1-2 in a Saturday maiden sprint at Del Mar. Those 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. That's how we do it. We'll re-rack it and do it after Thanksgiving, a week from today, next Tuesday. A reminder on the programming side, no Friday podcast this week, but we will have some written analysis on the website for the big stakes races this week. And I know Jeff's got Del Mar all mapped out. You've got a lot of good racing action on the West Coast coming up this weekend.
Yeah, it's good. I had a nice $18 winner for Sunday for our Express Bet followers, and we'll have selections throughout that meeting. And then we'll have some spot plays during December, whatever catches my eye as we wait for the opening on December 26th at Santa Anita. But good racing this weekend at Thanksgiving weekend. It's, it's not, you go over have a big family gathering, and I'll be watching the races, but I'll be kind of sneaking in the back room, and people think, that racing. Nah, it's okay. I mean, I said, but this race is good. Okay, go ahead and watch it then. So anyway, no, I'm just kind of kidding about that. But no, it's going to be a fun weekend. Really great, and hopefully we can, have a good weekend. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Healthy and safe weekend for you, and watch some races and make a wager too if you really, really like something.
I'll echo those sentiments as well. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We'll be back next week. Enjoy that. Enjoy the time with the family. Enjoy the good food and the great racing. Opening day of the championship meet at Gulfstream coming up on Thursday. Be sure to check that out. We'll talk to you soon.